This is the review for the Unit 4A factoring test. First of all, let's go over some steps that you need to take to be able to factor a trinomial. First of all, you're going to look to see if you have a greatest common factor and see if you can factor something out. Number two, you're going to split the middle term, which is your b. Remember, with the trinomial, you have a x squared plus b equals bx plus c. So you want to split that middle term. You need to be careful of your signs. So remember, a positive times a positive gives you a positive, a negative times a negative gives you a positive, and then a positive times a negative gives you a negative. You need to look at your last term and your middle term to see which signs we're going to use. We'll go over that as we go over the problems. After you split up your middle term, you are going to multiply your a times your c. That's the coefficient in the first term, and then the last term. And then you're going to find factors that add up to your middle term, or your b. After you have that written out, you're going to do grouping, factor, and then you can check by FOIL. So let's look at number one. All of these in this group, 1 through 6, you're going to be able to factor out completely a greatest common factor. So if I look at 4b squared minus 52v plus 120, so my first step is my GCF. I think they're all divisible by 4. We can look at it and check and say 52 is the only one I'm not really sure. 52 divided by 4, yes, it's 13. So if I take a 4 out, I'm going to be left with v squared minus 13v plus 30, because 30 times 4 is 120. So my second step is I need to split the middle term, looking out for signs. So I still have this 4 here. My v squared stays the same, and then my 30 over here is going to stay the same. But the 13v I need to split up into 2. So I'm going to have something v and then something else v. Since this is positive, I'm either going to have a positive and a positive or a negative and a negative. But if my middle term is negative, I need a negative and a negative. So when I find my factors of AC, which is my next step, they need to add up to a negative 52. So my AC is, this is actually the third step right here. I'm going to do it off to the side. 4 times 120, which is going to be 4 times 120. No. See, that's why we factored the 4. I need to look at this one. I was thinking, man, those are big numbers. Look at what we already factored out the 4, so we don't have to do the big numbers. It's actually going to be 1 times 30. So 1 times 30. I can just leave that as my first term, right? 1 times 30. When I add them up, do I get a negative 13? No, I don't. I'm looking for my negative 13. So 30, how about 2? 2 divided by 30 is 15. I'm looking for factors of 30. If I add them together, since they're both going to be negative, that would give me a negative 17. That wouldn't work. So what about 3 and 10? 3 times 10 is 30. And if they are both negative and I add them together, that gives me negative 13. So I'm going to put that in my blanks. So my fourth step is grouping, because I found the factors that add up to my b when I multiply a times e. So grouping, what all that means, I still have this 4 here. I'm going to put a big bracket here. I've got v squared minus 3v minus 10v plus 30. I like to circle my first 2 terms. You could put a square around it, whatever you want to do, but be careful and keep your signs in front or with the circle with the right grouping. So now I'm going to factor out a greatest common factor for each of these groups. So I still have, that's my step number 4. Step was number 4 was my grouping. Let's put that here, and then 5 would be my factoring, because my 3 was over here. So I still have this 4 here. So I'm going to look at my first group in v squared minus 3v. The only thing I can take out is a v. v times v gives me v squared. v times a negative 3 gives me negative 3v. I'm going to copy this over, what's in the parentheses. I'm going to just write that down right here. because if we did this right, that's going to be what we need. So what times v gives me a negative 10v? That's going to be a minus 10. Negative 10 times v, negative 10v. What is negative 10 times negative 3? A positive 30. We've got that correct. So my last step is to group these together. So I still have my 4. I'm going to copy down my v minus 3, which is in both sets of these parentheses. And my other set of parentheses goes what we took out that's in front of those parentheses, v minus 10. That is my answer. You can check by FOIL. I'm going to do that on one of my other problems, but you can check by FOIL to make sure you have the right answer, because our test is not going to be multiple choice, and so you need to be able to see if you got the right answer or not. So let's go to the next group. Let's look at number 7. Factor each completely where a equals 1. We already have this split up for you. So I think I'm going to do, so just pretend like you already did the split, and you can go ahead and do the grouping and solve. So since we have that part, I'm going to work on number 8 for you, because you may need to see that again. So my first step is to look for the greatest common factor, and I don't have one. I can't factor anything else out. So my second step is to split it. I'm going to split this middle term, so it's going to be an m something. I'm going to subtract or add. I'm going to figure that out, and then I'm going to have, oh, this is m squared here, and then I'm going to have another m. That's what these are going to be split up into, and then I have my plus 72. This is a positive, this is a negative, so that means that if we look at the sign table, that both of these are going to be negative. So I need to see what goes in these two spots. That's my number 3, where I factor. I multiply my a times my c, which is 1 times 72, which is 72. I need factors of 72 that equal, when I add them up, they equal to negative 17. So I know that I've got 1 and 72, 2 and 36. Let's see, does 3 go into 72? If we add our digits together, 7 plus 2 is 9. 9 is divisible by 3, so yes, it does go into 72. That would be 2 times, and then a 4. 4 times 24. 3 times 24. Would that give me 17? No. How about 4? 72 divided by 4. Let's clear that out. 72 divided by 4, and I get 18. That's still not going to do it, is it? We know 5 is not a factor of 72 because it doesn't end in a 5 or 0. So what about 72 divided by 6? 6 and 12. 6 and 12 gives me 18. So that's not it either. Let's see. 72 divided by 8. 8 and 9. Does that give me 17? It does. So I'm going to put that in there. And we've got that done. Now our next step is to group. So if I don't want to rewrite that, I can go ahead, you can write number 4 down if you want to, and I'm going to go ahead and put a circle around my first 2 terms and my last 2 terms. Remember to keep the negative with that 9. So let's factor out our GCF for the first grouping. It's going to be an m. And I'm going to be left with m minus 8. I could go ahead and copy that down over here. What times m gives me negative 9m? That's going to be a negative 9. Is negative 9 times a negative 8 a positive 72? Yes, it is. So my answer is going to be m minus 8 times what I pulled out. I can circle those so that you can see that. M minus 9. Now if I wanted to use FOIL to check, FOIL, I'm going to multiply my first 2 terms in each of the parentheses, and that would be m squared. I'm going to do my last 2 next. 8 times negative 9, negative 8 times negative 9 gives me a positive 72. So far I'm good. M squared, positive 72. I have to save these for last because I want to add them together. I'm going to do my outside, my O, That's going to be m times negative 9 m, and then my inside is negative 8m. Hey, does that look like what I split it up into? When I add these together, I get a negative 17m. So yes, my answer is correct. Let's turn it to the back of the page and look at a couple of these problems. Again, I'm not going to do 15 since it's kind of started for you. So let's look at 17. Can I pull out a greatest common factor between 5, negative 26, and negative 24? No, I cannot. So I'm going to split the middle term. And so it's going to be 5v squared. And this is negative. So that means I'm going to have a negative and a positive. That's the only way I'm going to get to the negative here. So I'm going to have a negative something v and a positive something v, and then minus 24. So I split those two. They need to add up to negative 26. So now I need to find my AC. AC, that is 5 times 24. I know I'm using a calculator. Some of you use calculators and some don't. You can do this, but for sake of time, I am going ahead and using it. I got 1080. I don't think that's right. 5 times 24. How about 120? That is much better. I need two factors of 120 that when they're subtracted, because they're going to have opposite signs, give me 26. Would 5 and 24 do that? No, they're not. Would 1 and 120 do it? Nope. 2 and 60? No. 3 and 40? That doesn't do it. 4 and 30? Ah! If I had a negative 30 and a positive 4, would that give me negative 26? Yes, it would. So negative 30 and a positive 4. Now, if it's negative, your biggest number is always going to be with your negative. And then your smaller number will be with the positive. And reverse, if it's positive, your bigger number will be with your positive sign. So let's go ahead and group these. Group my first two terms and my second two terms. 5v squared minus 30v. I can take out a 5 and a v. So here I'm going to be left with a v minus 6. Because 5 times negative 6 is negative 30, and then v. I can copy that down, v minus 6. So what times v gives me 4v? That would be a positive 4. So does positive 4 times negative 6 give me negative 24? Yes, it does. So my answer is going to be 5v plus 4 times v minus 6. I'm just going to do one of these last ones, because basically if A is composite, we're doing the same steps. So I'm going to do one of these last ones where we have 4 terms and we're going to be doing grouping. It's really easier. It's a lot like what we've done, but we can skip the first couple of steps. So if we look at 23, I can go ahead and circle my first 2 terms and then my last 2 terms, and then find the GCF for each grouping. So 32 and 40. Let's see, 2 goes into both of them. 4 goes into both of them. Does 8 go into both of them? I think so. So 8, and I have an x squared. Look for your smallest amount, and this is x squared. So I pull out an 8x squared. So 8 times what gives me 32? That would be 4. And I need one more x. Remember, you add your exponents. 2 plus 1 is 3. So 8 times 5 gives me 40, and I already have the x squared pulled out. So let's see. Will 4x plus 5 work over here? What times 4x gives me 12x? That would be a positive 3. Is positive 3 times a positive 5 15? Yes, it is. So my answer is going to be 4x plus 5 times 8x squared plus 3. Good luck. I'm trying to do as many of these as you can so that you can be totally ready for the test next week. Bye.